I've been watching something profound happen in our world over these past few years, something that I believe touches the very essence of what it means to be human in this remarkable age. Everywhere I turn, I encounter people who are grappling with a question that would have seemed impossible just a generation ago. They're wondering if they still matter, if what they have to offer as human beings has any lasting value in a world where artificial intelligence can seemingly do everything they do, only faster, more accurately, and without ever getting tired. Just last month, I spoke with a surgeon who had spent 30 years perfecting his craft. He told me about watching an AI system analyze thousands of medical images in the time it would take him to examine just one. A teacher reached out to me, her voice heavy with uncertainty, describing how her students were turning to artificial tutors that never lose patience, never have bad days, and can explain calculus at 3 in the morning. An artist shared with me his bewilderment at seeing I create paintings that moved people to tears, music that made them dance, stories that kept them awake, reading until dawn. These aren't isolated cases. This is the great human question of our time. In boardrooms and classrooms, in hospitals and studios, in offices and homes around the world, people are asking themselves, what do I have that cannot be replicated? What makes me irreplaceable? Why do I matter? You've felt this, haven't you? That moment when you read about another breakthrough in artificial intelligence and felt something shift inside you. Maybe a flutter of anxiety in your chest, maybe a whisper of doubt in your mind, maybe that sinking feeling that the skills you've spent years developing, the expertise you've built your identity around, the work that gives your life meaning, maybe it's all becoming less necessary, less valued, less human. And if we're completely honest with ourselves, the pace of change is breathtaking. Every week brings news of artificial intelligence mastering another domain we thought was uniquely human. They're diagnosing diseases, composing symphonies, writing novels, making scientific discoveries, even creating new forms of art that didn't exist before. The machines are not just learning to do what we do, they're learning to do things we never imagined possible. I understand why this feels overwhelming. I understand why it can feel like we're standing on the shore watching a technological tsunami approach, knowing that when it hits, the landscape of human work, human creativity, human purpose will be forever changed. But here's what I've discovered in my years of studying human effectiveness and human potential, and this may surprise you. As artificial intelligence grows more sophisticated, as it takes over more of what we traditionally considered uniquely human capabilities, the need for authentic human intelligence doesn't diminish. It becomes more critical, not less. More. This is what I've come to understand as the AI paradox. The machines can process information faster than we ever could. They can identify patterns we would miss. They can solve complex problems in minutes that might take us months. But they cannot live a human life. They cannot love. They cannot hope. They cannot find meaning in struggle or joy in simple moments. They cannot choose courage over comfort, principle over convenience, service over self-interest. You see, in our natural response to compete with machines, to prove that we can be faster, more efficient, more productive than artificial intelligence, we're actually moving in exactly the wrong direction. We're trying to become more machine-like precisely when the world desperately needs us to become more deeply, authentically human. This takes me back to a pivotal moment in my own understanding. It was several years ago, long before artificial intelligence became the force it is today, but I was already sensing that something was missing from our conventional wisdom about human effectiveness. I had just finished a speaking engagement where I had presented the 7 habits to a group of highly successful executives. The response was enthusiastic, as it usually was. These were people who had mastered the principles of personal effectiveness. They were proactive, goal-oriented, systematic in their approach to life and leadership. But afterward, as I was gathering my materials, a woman approached me. She was clearly successful, confident, accomplished. But there was something in her eyes that stopped me. "Dr. Covey," she said quietly, "I've implemented all 7 habits. My productivity has never been higher. My career is thriving. But I feel like I'm living someone else's life. I'm effective, but I don't feel significant. I'm succeeding, but I'm not sure I'm making a difference that matters." That conversation haunted me for months. Here was someone who had achieved what most would consider the pinnacle of personal effectiveness, yet she felt empty. She had learned to manage her life beautifully, but she hadn't discovered what made her uniquely valuable as a human being. She was efficient, but she wasn't sure she was meaningful. I began to realize that the 7 habits, as powerful as they were in helping people become effective, were addressing only part of the human equation. They helped people move from dependence to independence to interdependence, but there was something beyond interdependence, something that went to the very heart of human significance, and that something was voice. Here's the irony that breaks my heart, and it's even more relevant today in our age of artificial intelligence than it was when I first recognized it. In trying to compete with machines at being machine-like, we lose the very thing that makes us irreplaceable. We become efficient but not significant, productive but not meaningful. We optimize our performance, but we lose touch with our purpose. But what if I suggested to you that the rise of artificial intelligence isn't actually a threat to your significance as a human being? What if it's an invitation? What if the very development that seems to diminish human value is actually the catalyst that will help you discover your authentic voice, your irreplaceable contribution, your unique way of adding value that no algorithm can replicate? What I'm about to share with you may be the most important principle of our time. It's certainly the most important principle I've discovered in my years of studying human potential. It's not about learning to compete with artificial intelligence. It's not about becoming more efficient or more productive in the traditional sense. It's about discovering and developing something that is purely, uniquely, irreplaceably human. It's about finding your voice in a world that has never needed authentic human voices more desperately. The eighth habit is about moving beyond effectiveness to significance, beyond success to contribution, beyond achievement to fulfillment. And in an age where artificial intelligence can do so much of what we thought only humans could do, your voice, your unique human contribution, has never been more precious or more necessary than it is right now. You see, human development follows a natural progression, a maturity continuum that most of us understand intuitively, even if we've never put words to it. We begin life in a state of complete dependence. As infants, as children, we rely entirely on others for our physical, emotional, and intellectual needs. Then, as we grow and learn, we move toward independence. We develop our own capabilities, our own thinking, our own ability to produce results. We become self-reliant. Most personal development stops there. Most success literature celebrates independence as the ultimate goal. But I discovered years ago that there's something beyond independence, something far more powerful and fulfilling. That's interdependence. The recognition that our greatest achievements, our most meaningful contributions come through working with others. The 7 habits were designed to guide people through this progression from dependence to independence to interdependence. But as I worked with thousands of people over the years, as I watched them master these habits and achieve remarkable levels of effectiveness, I began to see that even interdependence wasn't the end of the journey. There was something beyond it, something that went to the very core of what it means to be human. And that something was voice. Voice represents a 4th dimension of human development. It's the recognition that you have something unique to contribute that no one else can contribute in quite the same way. It's the understanding that effectiveness, as valuable as it is not the ultimate human achievement. Significance is. Think about the difference. Effectiveness is about doing things right. Significance is about doing the right things for the right reasons in your own unique way. Effectiveness asks, how can I win? Significance asks, how can I contribute? Effectiveness focuses on getting results. Significance focuses on adding value that only you can add. Now, in this age of artificial intelligence, this distinction becomes more than just philosophical. It becomes essential because machines are becoming incredibly effective. They can optimize, calculate, process, and produce results with a precision and speed that humans simply cannot match. But they cannot find significance. They cannot discover meaning. They cannot choose to contribute something that matters simply because it matters. When I talk about voice, I'm not just talking about having opinions or speaking up in meetings, though those things matter. I'm talking about something much deeper. Your voice is your unique personal significance. It's the way you add value that no algorithm can replicate, no artificial intelligence can automate, no machine can manufacture. Your voice is not just what you say. It's who you are and how you serve. It's the unique way you see problems that others miss. It's the particular way you connect with people that makes them feel understood. It's the specific combination of experiences, insights, and perspectives that you bring to any situation that makes things better simply because you're there. I've come to think of this as what I call the human frequency. Just as radio waves transmit on different frequencies, humans transmit on wavelengths that only humans can receive and interpret. When you speak with your authentic voice, when you contribute from your unique significance, you're broadcasting on frequencies that machines simply cannot access. You're transmitting hope, inspiration, empathy, wisdom, courage, love. These are the wavelengths that change hearts, transform organizations, and heal communities. Now, you might be wondering, how do I discover this voice? How do I find my unique frequency in a world filled with noise? That's where what I call the voice equation comes in. I've discovered that voice emerges at the intersection of 4 fundamental dimensions of human experience. Think of these as the coordinates of your unique contribution. When these 4 dimensions align, when they come together in the sacred space of your authentic self, you become not just effective, but irreplaceable. The first dimension is talent. This is your natural capacity, your innate gifts, the things you do so well that others notice and seek you out for. But talent alone isn't enough. The world is full of talented people who never find their voice. The second dimension is passion. This is what ignites you, what gives you energy, what makes you feel most alive. It's not just enthusiasm, it's deeper than that. It's what calls to something fundamental in your nature. But passion without direction can be wasteful, even destructive. The third dimension is need. This is where the world is crying out for what you have to offer. It's the problems that break your heart, the opportunities that excite you, the gaps that only you seem to see. But recognizing need without the ability to respond effectively leads only to frustration. The fourth dimension is conscience. This is your moral compass, your inner sense of what's right and meaningful. It's what tells you that certain contributions matter more than others, that some paths lead to significance while others lead only to success. But conscience without the other dimensions can lead to good intentions that never become good results. Here's what I've learned. Your voice lies at the intersection where these four dimensions meet. Talent plus passion plus need plus conscience. When you find work, when you find ways to contribute that honor all four of these dimensions simultaneously, you've found your voice. And when you found your voice, you found something that no artificial intelligence can replicate. This is what I call the voice equation. It's not a mathematical formula, but a human one. It's the sacred intersection where your uniqueness meets the world's need. It's where what you're good at converges with what you love, what the world needs, and what feels deeply right to your conscience. Let me tell you about someone who discovered this intersection in a way that might surprise you. Sarah was a brilliant financial analyst who had built her entire career on her ability to spot patterns in data that others missed. She was talented, highly paid, successful by every measure, but she came to me feeling deeply unsettled. "Dr. Covey," she said, "I'm afraid that artificial intelligence is going to make everything I've learned irrelevant. These new systems can analyze data faster and more accurately than I ever could." We began exploring her voice together. Yes, she had remarkable analytical talent, but as we dug deeper, we discovered that what really energized her wasn't the data itself, but what the data revealed about human struggles and possibilities. Her true passion was helping people understand their financial situations so they could make decisions that aligned with their values. The need she was uniquely positioned to meet wasn't just financial analysis, but financial education for people who had been intimidated or excluded by traditional approaches, and her conscience told her that true financial wisdom was about much more than maximizing returns. It was about creating security and freedom for the things that mattered most. When Sarah aligned these four dimensions, something remarkable happened. She didn't abandon her analytical skills, she transformed them. She created a practice focused on financial literacy for immigrant families, combining her technical expertise with her passion for human empowerment, meeting a need that traditional financial services had overlooked in a way that felt deeply meaningful to her values. No artificial intelligence could have made that connection. No algorithm could have seen that particular intersection of talent, passion, need, and conscience. Only Sarah could bring her unique combination of gifts, energy, perspective, and values to create something that didn't exist before she decided to let her voice emerge. This is what becomes possible when you stop trying to compete with machines and start contributing as only you can contribute. This is what opens up when you find your voice. Now I want to take you deeper into each of these four dimensions, these four voices that live within every human being. Think of these as your human operating system, the fundamental software that makes you uniquely capable of contributing in ways that no artificial intelligence can replicate. Each voice speaks to a different aspect of your humanity, and when they harmonize together, they create something truly extraordinary. Let's start with the voice of talent, which says, "I can." This is what I've come to call your genius zone, that remarkable space where your natural ability meets developed skill. Now, when I say genius, I'm not talking about intellectual superiority or academic achievement. I'm talking about something far more accessible and far more universal. Your genius zone is where you operate with an ease and effectiveness that feels almost effortless to you, but appears remarkable to others. It's that thing you do that makes people say, "How did you figure that out so quickly?" Or "You make that look so easy." It's the talent that feels so natural to you that you assume everyone can do it, which is precisely why you might be undervaluing it. I think about Maria, a software engineer I worked with several years ago. She was technically competent, certainly, but she came to me frustrated because she felt like artificial intelligence was making her programming skills obsolete. "These new AI systems can write code faster than I can think," she told me. "What's the point of what I do?" But as we explored her unique contributions, something fascinating emerged. Yes, She could write code, but that wasn't her real genius. Her genius was in taking incredibly complex technical concepts and explaining them in ways that made perfect sense to non-technical people. She had this remarkable ability to translate complexity into clarity, to build bridges between the technical world and the human world. When Maria realized this, everything changed. She didn't abandon her technical background. She leveraged it in a completely different way. She became a technical communications specialist, helping organizations implement new technologies by ensuring that everyone understood not just what the technology could do, but why it mattered and how it would improve their work and their lives. Here's what's beautiful about talent in the age of artificial intelligence. Machines can execute perfectly, but humans excel uniquely. An AI system can follow protocols flawlessly, but it cannot see what Maria saw. The human need for understanding, for connection, for meaning in the midst of technological change. It cannot feel the frustration of someone who's being left behind by innovation, or the joy of someone who suddenly grasps how technology can enhance rather than replace their contribution. So I want you to ask yourself this question. What comes so naturally to you that you assume everyone can do it? What do people consistently come to you for? What feels effortless to you but seems to require great effort from others? That's a clue to your genius zone. That's your voice of talent speaking. The second voice is the voice of passion, which says, I love. Now, passion has become such an overused word in our culture that it's almost lost its meaning. We talk about being passionate about everything from coffee to quarterly earnings, but real passion, the kind that leads to authentic voice, is much deeper than enthusiasm. It's your internal compass, the force that draws you towards certain activities, certain problems, certain possibilities. True passion has a very specific signature. It energizes you rather than drains you. When you're operating from genuine passion, time seems to disappear. You lose yourself in the work, not because you're avoiding life, but because you're fully alive in that moment. The test I often suggest is this. What leaves you more energized after doing it than you were before you started? What activities, what types of problems, what kinds of interactions make you feel more like yourself rather than less? This is very different from what you're good at, though the two can certainly overlap. I remember David, an accountant who came to me feeling completely depleted by his work. He was successful, well paid, respected in his firm, but he felt like he was dying inside. I became an accountant because I was good with numbers, he told me, but I hate what I do every day. As we explored his passion, we discovered something that surprised him. What energized David wasn't numbers for their own sake, but justice. He came alive when he could use his analytical skills to uncover wrongdoing, to protect people who were being taken advantage of, to ensure that truth prevailed over deception. David's passion led him to forensic accounting, where he now investigates financial fraud and helps victims recover stolen assets. He uses the same technical skills he always had, but now they're powered by passion, by a sense of purpose that makes every case personal. The work energizes him because it aligns with what he truly loves, using his abilities in service of justice. Here's the crucial difference between human passion and artificial intelligence. Machines optimize for efficiency, but humans are inspired by meaning. An AI can analyze financial statements faster and more accurately than David ever could. But it cannot feel the moral outrage at injustice that drives him to dig deeper, to ask the questions that weren't programmed, to persist when the obvious answers don't feel complete. Your passion is your uniquely human guidance system, pointing you toward the work that will energize rather than exhaust you, that will make you feel more alive rather than more depleted. The third voice is the voice of need, which says the world needs. This is what I call the contribution vacuum. Those spaces that only you can fill because of your unique perspective on problems that others either don't see or don't understand in quite the same way. Your voice of need emerges when you recognize problems that break your heart, opportunities that excite you, or gaps that seem obvious to you but invisible to others. It's not just any need, but needs that resonate with your particular combination of experience, insight, and concern. Here's a critical insight that I want you to really understand. Your voice emerges not from what you want, but from what the world needs through you. This is a profound shift from self-focus to service focus. It's the difference between asking, what can I get, and asking, what can I give? I think of Susan, a mother of a child with autism who became increasingly frustrated with the lack of community spaces where her son could feel comfortable and included. Restaurants were too loud and overwhelming. Parks had equipment that didn't accommodate his sensory needs. Community events were structured in ways that made participation impossible for families like hers. Susan could have simply complained about these limitations. Instead, she saw them as a contribution vacuum that only she and others with similar experiences could fill. She used her background in event planning to create autism-friendly community gatherings. She worked with local businesses to establish quiet hours and sensory-safe spaces. She developed programs that brought neurotypical and neurodiverse children together in structured, supportive environments. Susan's unique perspective on the need, born from her love for her son and her intimate understanding of the challenges autism families face, enabled her to see solutions that service providers and community leaders had missed. She didn't just identify problems, she created innovations that made life better for hundreds of families. The problems that break your heart are clues to your calling. The needs that you see clearly, that seem urgent and solvable to you but overlooked by others, these are pointing you toward your unique contribution. This is where your voice of need is calling you to respond. Here's what artificial intelligence cannot do. Machines solve programmed problems, but humans see unrecognized needs. AI can optimize existing solutions, but it cannot feel the frustration of a mother watching her child struggle with exclusion. It cannot experience the joy of seeing barriers removed and possibilities opened. It cannot be moved by love to see problems that weren't in any database. The fourth voice is the voice of conscience, which says, I must. This is your moral GPS, your internal navigation system for uncertain ethical territory. Conscience is what tells you that certain contributions matter more than others, that some paths lead to significance while others lead only to success. Conscience is that whisper inside that says this matters when logic says this is hard. It's the voice that calls you to do what's right, even when it's not easy, profitable, or popular. In our age of artificial intelligence, moral reasoning becomes more precious, not less, because the decisions we face are becoming more complex, not simpler. I remember a moment in my own life when my conscience overruled my convenience. I was asked to endorse a product that would have been financially lucrative for me. The company was successful, the product was popular, and my association with it would have enhanced my own visibility and income. But as I studied what they were really offering, I realized that while it wasn't harmful, it also wasn't truly helpful. It was designed more to create dependency than to build independence, more to generate ongoing revenue than to solve real problems. My conscience whispered, this doesn't serve people, this serves profit. And despite the financial opportunity, despite the convenience of saying yes, despite the relationships that would have been easier to maintain, I said no. That decision led me to be more careful, more intentional about the principles I would stand for, regardless of the cost. Conscience is the voice of the human spirit calling you to greatness. Not greatness as the world defines it, wealth, fame, power, but greatness as your deepest self knows it. Integrity, service, contribution that matters beyond your own lifetime. Why does moral reasoning become more precious as decisions become more complex? Because artificial intelligence can calculate optimal outcomes based on programmed criteria, but it cannot choose meaningful ones based on values that transcend calculation. It can tell you what will maximize profit, efficiency, or user engagement, but it cannot tell you what will maximize human dignity, justice, or love. When Google's engineers were developing their AI systems, they had to program ethical guidelines into the algorithms. But who decided what those guidelines should be? Humans did. Humans with conscience, with moral reasoning, with the ability to choose what matters most when trade-offs must be made. Your conscience is your uniquely human capacity to choose significance over success when they conflict, to choose service over self-interest when both are possible, to choose what's right over what's easy when the path forward is unclear. These four voices, talent, passion, need, and conscience, are always speaking within you. The question is whether you're listening, whether you're allowing them to guide you toward your authentic contribution, whether you're letting them harmonize into the unique song that only you can sing in this world. Now you might be thinking, Stephen, this all sounds wonderful in theory, but how can I be confident that these human qualities will really matter when artificial intelligence keeps getting more sophisticated? It's a fair question, and it's one that deserves an honest answer based on what I've observed about the fundamental differences between artificial and human intelligence. What I've discovered is that there are three distinct zones where human beings don't just complement artificial intelligence, but where we maintain absolute supremacy. These aren't areas where we're merely better than machines. These are domains where machines simply cannot operate at all, no matter how advanced they become. The first zone is emotional intelligence, not just recognizing emotions, but reading between the lines of human need and responding with genuine empathy. Artificial intelligence can identify emotional patterns in speech or facial expressions. It can even generate responses that seem empathetic, but it cannot feel what another person feels. It cannot understand the weight of someone's silence, the meaning behind their hesitation, or the hope hiding beneath their fear. When someone comes to you with a problem, artificial intelligence might provide the technically correct solution. But only you can sense whether they're really asking for advice, or if they need to be heard, or if they're testing whether anyone cares enough to truly listen. Only you can feel the difference between someone who needs information and someone who needs connection. The second zone is creative wisdom, the uniquely human ability to connect dots that don't logically connect, to see patterns that machines miss because they emerge from lived experience rather than data processing. This isn't just creativity in the artistic sense, though it includes that. It's the wisdom that comes from having lived through struggle, loss, joy, and discovery in ways that create insights no algorithm could generate. Artificial intelligence can analyze millions of data points to identify patterns, but it cannot look at a struggling employee and see echoes of your own difficult beginnings. It cannot recognize that a customer's complaint about product features is really about feeling unheard in their personal life. It cannot connect the dots between your grandmother's stories about resilience and the leadership challenge you're facing today. The third zone is moral leadership, the capacity to choose what's right over what's merely efficient or profitable. Artificial intelligence can optimize for any variable you program into it. It can maximize profits, minimize costs, increase productivity, reduce errors. But it cannot choose to sacrifice short-term gains for long-term integrity. It cannot decide that some things matter more than the metrics by which they're measured. When artificial intelligence recommends the most efficient path to your goal, only you can ask whether that goal is worthy of your life. Only you can choose to do something because it's right, even when it's costly. Only you can decide that some victories aren't worth winning if they require compromising your values. But there's something even deeper that sets human intelligence apart from artificial intelligence, something I call the authenticity algorithm. This is how humans create meaning from experience. We don't just process data. We live through experiences, we suffer and celebrate and learn and grow, and we transform all of that into wisdom that can only come from having been truly present in our own lives. Artificial intelligence can process information faster than you, analyze it more completely than you, and store it more permanently than you. But it cannot live a life more meaningfully than you. It cannot take the raw material of human experience, the setbacks and breakthroughs, the relationships and losses, the moments of doubt and clarity, and transform them into wisdom that serves others. I think of James, a manager I worked with whose team was failing by every measurable standard. Productivity was down, morale was terrible, turnover was increasing. The obvious solutions, better systems, clearer metrics, performance improvement plans, had all been tried. Artificial intelligence analyzing the situation would have recommended more of the same. Optimize the processes, clarify the objectives, increase accountability. But James saw something the data couldn't reveal. He saw that his team members felt invisible, unvalued, like interchangeable parts in a machine. So he did something that no algorithm would have suggested. He began having coffee with each team member, not to discuss performance, but to understand their stories. He learned about their dreams, their struggles, their reasons for caring about the work beyond the paycheck. Sarah was supporting her aging parents. Mike was trying to build something meaningful after a previous job had left him feeling used. Jennifer was brilliant, but had been overlooked for promotion so many times she'd stopped believing in her own potential. James didn't change the systems. He changed the culture. He created an environment where people felt seen, valued, and connected to something larger than themselves. He helped Sarah see how her analytical skills could benefit not just the company, but the thousands of customers who relied on their service. He gave Mike leadership opportunities that let him rebuild his sense of purpose. He advocated for Jennifer's promotion and became her mentor. Within 6 months, the same team with the same systems and the same objectives had become one of the highest performing units in the company. Not because of better algorithms or more efficient processes, but because James understood something that artificial intelligence never could. People don't work for companies, they work for meaning, for connection, for the feeling that their contribution matters. This is what the authenticity algorithm looks like in action. James took his own experiences of feeling overlooked and undervalued earlier in his career, his understanding of what it meant to be seen and appreciated, and he transformed those experiences into leadership wisdom that changed lives. No artificial intelligence could have made those connections because no artificial intelligence has ever felt invisible, has ever yearned to matter, has ever experienced the joy of being truly seen and valued, Here's what I find fascinating about our current moment in history. As artificial intelligence becomes more capable of handling routine tasks, of answering standard questions, of solving predictable problems, our hunger for authentic human connection is intensifying, not diminishing. The more automated our world becomes, the more precious human attention becomes. Think about your own experience. When you call a customer service line and you're transferred through 3 automated systems before reaching a human being, how do you feel when you finally hear a real person's voice? When you receive a handwritten note in a world of emails and text messages, what impact does it have? When someone remembers your name, your story, something that matters to you personally, how does that change your relationship with them? I see this everywhere I look. Students are gravitating toward teachers who don't just deliver content, but who see them as individuals with unique potential. Customers are choosing businesses that provide not just efficient service, but personal attention. Employees are staying with leaders who don't just manage their performance, but who care about their development as human beings. The teacher who truly sees you, who notices when you're struggling, who recognizes your potential even when you don't see it yourself, who believes in you when you've stopped believing in yourself. The leader who really listens, who hears not just what you're saying, but what you're trying to say, who asks questions that help you think more clearly about your own situation. The friend who understands without judgment, who knows you well enough to see the story behind the behavior, the pain behind the anger, the fear behind the resistance. These forms of human presence are becoming premium offerings in an AI world. Not because they're rare skills that few can develop, but because they require something that artificial intelligence will never possess: the lived experience of being human, with all the vulnerability, uncertainty, and hope that entails. When you offer genuine human attention in a world increasingly run by algorithms, when you provide authentic understanding in a culture of automated responses, when you choose to see people as individuals rather than data points, you're not just being nice. You're providing something that's becoming increasingly valuable precisely because it's becoming increasingly rare. This is your human advantage. This is what makes you irreplaceable. Not because you can compete with artificial intelligence at being artificial, but because you can do something artificial intelligence will never be able to do. You can be authentically, meaningfully, irreplaceably human. Understanding your 4 voices is one thing. Actually living from them is something entirely different. It's the difference between knowing the notes and playing the symphony. So let me share with you what I call the voice spiral, a natural progression that I've observed in people who successfully move from discovering their voice to living it fully. The voice spiral has 4 stages, and like any spiral, you don't just pass through these once. You circle back through them at deeper levels throughout your life as your voice evolves and matures. The first stage is discovery, simply becoming aware of your 4 voices. This is when you start listening to what your talent, passion, need, and conscience are telling you. Most people live their entire lives without ever deliberately tuning into these internal signals. They follow external expectations, market demands, or family pressures without ever asking what their authentic self is calling them toward. Discovery often begins with discomfort. Something isn't working. You feel restless, unfulfilled, like you're living someone else's life. That discomfort is actually a gift. It's your authentic self trying to get your attention, trying to tell you that you're capable of something more aligned with who you really are. The second stage is development, deliberately strengthening each dimension through practice. Once you become aware of your voices, you realize that awareness alone isn't enough. Your talent needs to be refined. Your passion needs to be focused. Your understanding of need requires deeper exploration. Your conscience needs to be calibrated through experience and reflection. Development takes time and intention. It's not enough to know that you have a gift for connecting with people. You need to develop that gift through study, practice, and feedback. It's not sufficient to feel passionate about education. You need to understand the specific aspects of learning that energize you most and how you can contribute most effectively. The third stage is deployment, actually using your voice in service to others. This is where discovery and development transform into contribution. You stop developing your voice for its own sake and start using it to add value in the world. You find ways to apply your unique combination of talent, passion, need, and conscience to make things better. Deployment requires courage because it means stepping out of the realm of potential into the arena of actual performance. It means risking failure, criticism, misunderstanding. But it's only through deployment that your voice becomes real rather than just theoretical. The fourth stage is destiny, inspiring others to find their voice. When you're living authentically from your voice, when you're contributing in ways that honor all 4 dimensions of your humanity, something remarkable happens. You become an example that gives others permission to find their own authentic path. Your voice creates space for other voices to emerge. This isn't about becoming famous or building a platform. It's about the natural influence that comes from authentic living. When people see someone who has found the intersection of talent, passion, need, and conscience, when they witness someone contributing from their authentic self rather than from obligation or expectation, it awakens something in them. It reminds them that they too have a voice waiting to be discovered. But let me tell you about the most crucial part of this journey, what I call the intersection moment. This is when all four dimensions begin to align, when you find work or ways to contribute that honor your talent, passion, need, and conscience simultaneously. I think of Rebecca, a highly successful corporate executive who came to me several years ago feeling completely lost, despite her impressive achievements. She had climbed the corporate ladder quickly, earned substantial income, gained respect in her industry, but she felt like she was dying inside. "I'm good at what I do," she told me, "but I hate it. I make a lot of money, but I feel like I'm selling my soul. I'm successful, but I don't feel significant." As we explored her four voices together, a fascinating picture emerged. Her talent was for strategic thinking and organizational development. Her passion was for justice and equality. The need she saw most clearly was the lack of economic opportunity in underserved communities. And her conscience told her that business success without social contribution was ultimately empty. For months, Rebecca wrestled with what felt like impossible choices. Should she abandon her corporate career to work for a nonprofit at a fraction of her current income? Should she stay in her lucrative but unfulfilling role to maintain financial security? Should she try to find some middle ground that satisfied no one completely? Then something clicked. Rebecca realized that her voice wasn't found in choosing between her talents, passions, needs, and conscience. It was found in the sacred space where they all met. She didn't need to abandon her business skills to pursue social justice. She could use those skills in service of justice. Rebecca founded a social enterprise that provides business consulting and micro-lending to entrepreneurs in underserved communities. She leveraged her corporate experience and strategic thinking talent to create sustainable economic opportunities for people who had been excluded from traditional business networks. Her passion for justice fueled her energy. The need in the community gave direction to her efforts. Her conscience told her this work mattered more than profit alone. The transformation was profound. Rebecca went from feeling like she was selling her soul to feeling like she was fulfilling her purpose. She went from asking, "What can I get?" to asking, "What can I give?" The work was harder, the income was initially lower, but she was more energized and fulfilled than she had ever been in her corporate role. This is what the intersection moment looks like. It's not about finding the perfect job or the ideal opportunity. It's about creating work that honors all of who you are. And here's what I've learned. The intersection often requires sacrifice and courage. It requires being willing to disappoint some people who have expectations about who you should be or what you should do. This brings me to what I call voice courage, the bravery to be authentically you in a world of artificial everything. Finding your voice isn't just about self-discovery, it's about self-expression in the face of pressure to conform, to fit in, to meet other people's expectations of who you should be. Voice courage is what enables you to choose belonging to yourself over fitting in with others. It's what allows you to disappoint some people in order to become who you really are. And here's something I've learned. Finding your voice will require disappointing some people who want you to be someone else. That's not a bug in the system. That's a feature. When you start living from your authentic voice, some people will be uncomfortable. They may have invested in a version of you that served their needs rather than your authentic self. They may pressure you to return to patterns that were familiar to them but limiting to you. Voice courage means being willing to risk those relationships in order to honor your authentic contribution. Your voice may not be the loudest in the room, but when it's authentic, it's the most powerful. Authentic voice carries a frequency that people recognize even when they can't explain what they're hearing. It has an authority that comes not from position or volume, but from alignment between your inner truth and your outer expression. I've watched people transform not just their own lives, but entire organizations when they found the courage to speak and act from their authentic voice. They stopped trying to be what others wanted them to be and started contributing what only they could contribute. The results were always surprising, often challenging, and ultimately transformative. In our age of artificial intelligence, when so much of our interaction is mediated by algorithms and automated systems, authentic human voice becomes more precious, not less. When you have the courage to be genuinely yourself, to contribute from your real strengths and passions in service of real needs according to your conscience, you're offering something that no artificial intelligence can replicate. You're offering the irreplaceable gift of an authentic human being who has found their voice and has the courage to use it. Now you might be wondering, Stephen, this all makes sense. But how do I actually begin this journey of voice discovery? How do I move from understanding these concepts to living them? That's exactly the right question, because understanding without application is merely intellectual entertainment. Real transformation requires practical steps, deliberate practice, and the courage to begin before you feel completely ready. Let me give you 3 specific tools that you can begin using immediately to discover and develop your authentic voice. The first tool I call the weekly voice audit. This is a simple but powerful practice of conscious voice awareness. 3 times each week, you ask yourself one specific question designed to tune your attention to different aspects of your voice. On Monday, as you begin your week, ask yourself, what did I do last week that only I could do? This question helps you recognize your unique contributions, not the tasks that anyone could have completed, but the specific ways you added value that emerged from your particular combination of talent, perspective, and approach. Maybe you helped resolve a conflict in a way that brought people together rather than just solving the immediate problem. Maybe you explained a complex concept in a way that made it accessible to someone who had been struggling to understand. Maybe you noticed something that others missed and addressed it before it became a bigger issue. The key is to look for contributions that bear your unique signature, that reflect not just your skills, but your authentic way of being in the world. On Wednesday, at the midpoint of your week, ask yourself, where did I feel most alive and energized? This question attunes you to your passion voice. Notice which activities, interactions, and challenges left you feeling more energized rather than drained. Pay attention to when you lost track of time because you were so engaged in what you were doing. This isn't about what you're supposed to enjoy or what looks impressive to others. It's about honest recognition of what genuinely energizes your spirit, what makes you feel more like yourself rather than less. On Friday, as you close your week, ask yourself, how did I serve something greater than myself? This question connects you to your need and conscience voices. It helps you recognize when your work contributed to something meaningful beyond your own advancement or benefit. Maybe you mentored someone who was struggling. Maybe you made a decision that prioritized long-term value over short-term gain. Maybe you stood up for a principle that mattered to you, even when it was inconvenient. The practice of conscious voice awareness week after week begins to reveal patterns. You start to see threads that connect your unique contributions, your sources of energy, and your meaningful service. These patterns point toward your authentic voice. For those who want to go deeper, I recommend what I call the 30-day voice experiment. This is a month-long journey of deliberate voice discovery divided into 4 distinct weeks. Week 1 is about listening to your internal voices. Each day, spend a few minutes journaling about the 4 dimensions. What talents felt effortless today? What sparked passion or energy in you? What needs did you notice that others seem to overlook? What moments required you to choose between convenience and conscience? Don't analyze or judge these observations. Just notice and record them. Week 2 shifts your attention outward. Begin observing where you add unique value that others notice and appreciate. Pay attention to what people thank you for, what they seek you out for, what they compliment you on. Listen for comments like, you have such a gift for, or I don't know how you do that, or you always see things differently. These external observations often reveal gifts that feel so natural to you that you discount their significance. Week 3 is about small experiments in voice deployment. Based on what you've learned about your voices in the first 2 weeks, try contributing in new ways. Volunteer for a project that aligns with your passions. Offer to help with problems that engage your talents. Speak up when your conscience calls you to advocate for something important. These don't have to be dramatic changes. Small experiments often reveal big insights. Week 4 focuses on seeking feedback and noticing patterns. Ask people who know you well about your authentic contributions. Look back at your 3 weeks of observations and experiments. What themes emerge? Where do you see alignment between your internal voices and external impact? What experiments energized you most? What feedback surprised you? By the end of 30 days, you'll have a much clearer picture of your authentic voice and how you might begin to develop and deploy it more intentionally. But if you only do one thing as a result of our conversation today, I want it to be this. This week, ask 3 different people this simple question. When do you see me at my best? Life and someone who has observed you in challenging situations. Ask the question with genuine curiosity, not fishing for compliments. Listen carefully to their answers without defending, explaining, or minimizing what they tell you. You'll be amazed at what you learn. Sometimes others see your voice before you do. They notice patterns in your contributions that you've taken for granted. They see strengths that feel so natural to you that you don't recognize them as remarkable. I remember when I first asked this question of people in my life. One person said, "You're at your best when you're helping someone see possibilities they didn't know they had." Another said, "You shine when you're connecting principles to real-life situations in ways that make complex ideas simple." A third observed, "You're most yourself when you're serving something you believe in deeply." Those conversations helped me understand my own voice in ways that years of self-reflection hadn't revealed. Sometimes we're too close to our own gifts to see them clearly. The perspective of others who have witnessed our authentic contributions can illuminate aspects of our voice that we've overlooked. Listen carefully to the patterns in what people tell you. Notice which observations energize you and which feel true to your experience. Pay attention to feedback that surprises you or challenges your self-perception. This information is gold for voice discovery. The humility to receive feedback about your gifts is itself a form of wisdom. It requires setting aside the inner critic that dismisses compliments and the ego that thinks it already knows everything about your capabilities. It means being curious about how your authentic self shows up in the world, even when it differs from your internal narrative. Your voice discovery journey begins with a single step, a willingness to pay attention to what's already there but perhaps unrecognized. In our rapidly changing world, in this age where artificial intelligence can replicate so many human capabilities, your authentic voice becomes more precious, not less. The question isn't whether you have a voice. The question is whether you'll take the steps necessary to discover it, develop it, and deploy it in service of what matters most. As we reach the end of our time together, I want to leave you with a perspective that goes far beyond personal success or individual fulfillment. What we're talking about, this journey of finding and using your authentic voice, isn't just about making your life better, though it will certainly do that. It's about something much larger and more significant. I believe we are standing at the threshold of what I call the great humanization. For decades, maybe centuries, we've been moving toward greater automation, standardization, and mechanization. We've measured progress by how efficiently we could make human work more machine-like. But artificial intelligence is forcing us to confront a profound question. If machines can do what we thought only humans could do, what does it actually mean to be human? The answer, I believe, will reshape everything. We're entering an era where being authentically human becomes our greatest competitive advantage. Not trying to be more like machines, but becoming more deeply, courageously, irreplaceably human. In an age of artificial intelligence, authentic human intelligence becomes the most valuable resource on Earth. Your capacity to love, to hope, to create meaning from suffering, to choose what's right over what's easy, to see possibilities that don't exist in any database, to connect with another human being in ways that transform both of you. These capabilities become more precious, not less precious, as artificial intelligence advances. This means that finding and expressing your authentic voice isn't just about personal fulfillment. It's a service to humanity's future. When you discover and develop your unique way of contributing, when you learn to add value that no algorithm can replicate, you're not just building a more satisfying life for yourself. You're participating in the great human project of demonstrating what makes our species irreplaceable. Every time you choose authenticity over conformity, every time you use your talents in service of something meaningful, every time you listen to your conscience instead of just following the crowd, you're contributing to a future where human beings thrive alongside artificial intelligence instead of being diminished by it. But here's something even more beautiful about living from your authentic voice. When you find the courage to be genuinely yourself, when you stop trying to be what others expect and start contributing what only you can contribute, you give others permission to do the same. Authenticity is contagious. When people see someone who has found their voice and is using it courageously, it awakens something in them. It reminds them that they too have permission to be real, to contribute authentically, to stop hiding who they really are behind masks of conformity and expectation. I've watched this happen over and over again. One person finds their voice and uses it to serve something they care about deeply. Others notice. They see someone being genuine instead of strategic, contributing instead of just competing, serving instead of just succeeding. And something stirs in them. They begin to wonder, what would happen if I stopped trying to be what everyone else wants me to be and started being who I really am? This is how movements begin. Not with grand announcements or elaborate plans, but with individuals who find their authentic voice and have the courage to use it. Their authenticity creates space for others' authenticity. Their willingness to be real gives others permission to stop pretending. We are living in a time when the world desperately needs this movement from imitation and conformity to authenticity and contribution. We need people who are willing to be genuine instead of artificial, meaningful instead of just efficient, human instead of machine-like. The world doesn't need another artificial anything. The world needs an authentic you. Your unique combination of talents and passions, your particular way of seeing needs that others miss, your conscience-guided approach to making things better. This is what the world is crying out for, even if it doesn't always know how to ask for it. Every generation faces a defining choice that shapes the future, not just for themselves, but for those who come after them. Our parents and grandparents faced choices about war and peace, freedom and oppression, justice and inequality. These were profound moral choices that required courage and sacrifice. Our generation faces a different but equally profound choice. We can diminish in the shadow of machines, allowing artificial intelligence to make us feel smaller, less significant, more replaceable. We can compete with algorithms at being algorithmic and inevitably lose. We can allow ourselves to become more automated, more predictable, more machine-like in our thinking and our contributions. Or we can choose to rise to our highest human potential. We can decide that the advancement of artificial intelligence is not a threat to human significance, but an invitation to discover it. We can choose to become more human, not less, more authentic, not less, more meaningful in our contributions, not less. This choice belongs to each of us individually, but its impact extends far beyond our individual lives. When you choose to find and use your authentic voice, you're participating in something larger than personal development. You're contributing to the great human story, adding your unique chapter to the ongoing narrative of what it means to be human in an age of artificial intelligence. You have the opportunity to join the ranks of those throughout history who found their voice and used it to change the world. Not necessarily in dramatic headline-making ways, though some will do that, but in the countless small ways that authentic contribution transforms families, communities, organizations, and lives. The teacher who sees potential in every student and creates environments where that potential can flourish. The leader who builds cultures of trust and meaning instead of just efficiency and profit. The parent who raises children to be authentic contributors rather than just successful competitors. The friend who offers genuine understanding in a world of artificial responses. The worker who brings creativity and conscience to tasks that others approach mechanically. These are the voices our world needs. These are the contributions that no artificial intelligence can replicate, no algorithm can automate, no machine can manufacture. Your voice is not just something you have. It's something the world desperately needs. The question is not whether you have a voice. Every human being has a unique contribution to make. The question is not whether your voice matters. It does, more than you may ever fully know. The question is simpler and more challenging than that. Will you find the courage to use it? The choice is yours. The time is now. Your voice is waiting.